The air in the prestigious private gallery was a hushed symphony of muted conversations and the soft scuff of expensive shoes on polished marble floors. Sunlight, filtered through tall, arched windows, illuminated masterpieces from various eras, casting a golden glow on the reverent faces of art aficionados. Vincent Cole, renowned art investor and a man accustomed to discerning value in beauty, held his 5-year-old daughter Lily by the hand. Lily, with her bright, inquisitive eyes and a spirit as vibrant as a freshly bloomed spring flower, usually found art galleries tedious, her attention span as fleeting as a butterfly. Today, however, she was unusually quiet, her small hand gripping Vincent's with an uncharacteristic intensity. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Vincent, a widower whose life had been irrevocably reshaped by the tragic loss of his wife, Amelia Ross, 6 years prior, cherished these quiet moments with Lily. Amelia, with her fiery spirit and profound love for art, would have adored bringing their daughter to such a place. He often felt her absence like a phantom limb, a persistent ache that dulled the edges of even his happiest moments. He had poured his grief into building his investment empire, ensuring Lily would never want for anything, a silent testament to Amelia's enduring legacy. He had learned to navigate the world as a single father, a life he never anticipated, filled with both immense love and a profound, lingering solitude. The echoes of Amelia's laughter, the scent of her favorite jasmine perfume, the warmth of her hand in his, were memories he guarded fiercely, fragile treasures in the vast emptiness she had left behind. He had believed, with every fiber of his being, that his healing journey, though agonizing, was finally progressing, that the sharp edges of his grief were softening into a dull throb of acceptance. They drifted from room to room, Vincent offering simple explanations of brushstrokes and color palettes, Lily occasionally pointing out a particularly vivid landscape or a fantastical creature in a classical piece. His mind, usually sharp and analytical, was momentarily lulled by the quiet beauty of the surroundings and the innocent joy of his daughter's presence. He was content in this moment, far removed from the cutthroat world of high finance. Then, as they rounded a corner into a smaller, more secluded alcove, Lily stopped abruptly. Her small hand, usually restless, became rigidly still in his. She didn't speak, didn't tug. She simply stood, utterly captivated, her gaze fixed intently on a large oil painting hanging on the far wall. It was a 19th-century portrait, rendered with a realism that bordered on unsettling. The subject was a woman, her face framed by cascades of dark, wavy hair, her eyes, a striking shade of emerald green, filled with an indescribable sorrow. A single tear traced a path down her pale cheek, catching the light like a fallen star. The background was indistinct, a swirling vortex of muted blues and grays that seemed to emphasize her profound isolation. The overall impression was one of breathtaking beauty intertwined with heart-wrenching grief. Vincent found himself momentarily transfixed, not just by the artistry, but by an uncanny familiarity that prickled at the edges of his memory. A subconscious recognition that tugged at something deep within his soul, something he couldn't quite place. The woman's sorrow seemed to resonate with a hidden chord in his own being, a feeling of deep-seated empathy that was rare for him, given his often guarded nature. Lily, still silent, slowly raised her tiny finger and pointed at the weeping woman on the canvas. Her voice, when it came, was soft, almost a whisper, but it cut through the serene gallery silence with the sharpness of a newly honed blade. "That's Mommy," she said, her lower lip trembling slightly. "But she's crying." The world tilted on its axis for Vincent Cole. The hushed elegance of the gallery, the curated beauty, everything dissolved into a chaotic swirl of disbelief and a chilling sense of dread. Lily's words, so innocent yet so devastatingly precise, echoed in his ears, reverberating through the carefully constructed piece he had built around his life. He looked at the painting again, his professional eye now clouded by a desperate personal horror. It wasn't just a resemblance, it was an exact, breathtaking likeness of Amelia Ross. The same cascading dark hair, thick and slightly wavy, that he had so often brushed away from her face. The same distinctive curve of her lips, usually upturned in a mischievous smile, now downturned in profound despair. The exact shade of emerald green in her eyes, those captivating windows to her vibrant soul, now dulled by unshed tears. Even the small, almost imperceptible freckle beneath her left eye, a detail he had kissed 1,000,000 times, a tiny constellation on her skin that only he truly knew, was precisely rendered. It was Amelia. But it was Amelia weeping, a depth of despair in her painted eyes he had never witnessed in life, a vulnerability that tore at his very being. A cold dread seeped into his bones, chilling him despite the warmth of the gallery. Amelia had been declared dead 6 years ago, a victim of a sudden, violent storm while sailing off the coast of their private island estate in the Caribbean. Her boat, the Wanderer, a vessel she adored, had been found, shattered fragments scattered across the turbulent waves, a ghostly debris field marking the end of her life. But her body had never been recovered, swallowed by the unforgiving sea, leaving an open wound of uncertainty in his heart. The official ruling was accidental death, a tragic, unforeseen act of nature, a cruel caprice of the ocean. He had buried his grief in endless work, built a new life around Lily, clinging to the solace of her memory, trying to find meaning in their continued existence. He had told Lily that her mommy was now a star in the sky, watching over them, a gentle lie to shield her from the brutal finality of absence. Now, this painting, this impossible haunting image, tore open old wounds with brutal force, ripping apart the fragile piece he had painstakingly built. He knelt, bringing himself to Lily's level, his voice a strained whisper, ragged with suppressed emotion. "Lily, sweetheart, that's just a painting. It looks a little like Mommy, doesn't it?" He tried to inject a lightness into his tone, a reassuring calm, but his voice cracked betrayingly, revealing the profound shock that had seized him. Lily shook her head, her gaze unwavering, fixed on the painted tears that seemed to shimmer with real moisture. "No, Daddy, it is Mommy. She looks sad. Why is Mommy crying?" Her innocent question was a dagger twisting in his gut, each word a fresh cut, pushing him deeper into a terrifying rabbit hole of questions and possibilities. Vincent stood up slowly, his movements stiff, almost robotic, his eyes still locked on the painting. He scanned the small, discreet plaque beneath it, his vision momentarily blurred by the intensity of his focus. It read, "The Griever, oil on canvas, 19th century. Artist, A. Thorne." A. Thorne. The name meant nothing to him, evoked no memories, no connections. A reclusive painter, the gallery attendant had mentioned earlier, a mysterious figure who had vanished after this masterpiece was completed, leaving behind only whispers and this haunting legacy, a shadow in art history. The gallery owner, a stout, meticulously dressed man named Ancestor Finch, approached them, a polite smile on his face, oblivious to the earthquake that had just occurred in Vincent's world. "Ah, Mr. Cole, I see you found The Griever. It's a truly remarkable piece, isn't it? Very popular. Many find its emotional depth quite profound." Vincent turned to him, his composure slipping, his face pale beneath his tan. "Mr. Finch, who is this artist, A. Thorne, and when exactly was this painting created?" His voice was low, laced with an urgency he couldn't hide, a desperate plea for information that might ground him back in reality. Finch adjusted his spectacles, a flicker of surprise in his eyes at Vincent's uncharacteristic intensity. A. Thorne is quite enigmatic, I'm afraid. Very little is known about his life or other works, if any exist. The painting itself is dated to the late 19th century, specifically around 1885. It was recently acquired from a private collection, a remote estate in the Battere countryside. A very fortuitous find, truly. He gestured vaguely with a manicured hand. Why the sudden interest, Mr. Cole? Are you considering an acquisition? Vincent ignored the question, his mind reeling, a chaotic storm of conflicting thoughts and impossible scenarios. 1885. Impossible. Amelia had died 6 years ago, in the 21st century. This had to be a cruel coincidence, a startling resemblance, a trick of light and memory playing on his profound grief. Yet Lily's certainty, her innocent conviction, gnawed at him, refusing to be dismissed. And the resemblance was simply too perfect, too uncanny, too laden with intimate details that transcended mere likeness. A deep, unsettling chill began to spread through him, a premonition of something dark and unfathomable. He purchased the painting on the spot, his offer so exorbitant that Alistair Finch's polite smile transformed into one of genuine astonishment, his eyes widening to the size of saucers. Vincent didn't care about the cost. The astronomical sum was irrelevant. He needed the griever out of the gallery, away from curious eyes, into his private world where he could unravel this impossible riddle without external interference. He arranged for it to be delivered immediately to his secluded estate, a place where he could confront the haunting image in solitude, away from the prying eyes of society. Back at his sprawling, elegantly minimalist home, located on a quiet hilltop overlooking the shimmering expanse of the city, Vincent placed Lily in the care of their trusted nanny, Clara. Lily, still perplexed, but seemingly comforted by the promise that Daddy would make Mommy stop crying, finally drifted into a restless nap. Once Lily was settled, her small, fragile presence a stark reminder of his profound responsibility. He retreated to his private study, a room usually reserved for quiet contemplation, the meticulous management of his vast investments, and the occasional solitary scotch. The griever had been carefully unwrapped and placed on an easel in the center of the room, its sorrowful gaze immediately drawing the eye. He stood before it for a long time, the silence of the room broken only by the rhythmic, steady ticking of an antique grandfather clock in the corner. He studied every brushstroke, every shadow, every nuance of the woman's sorrowful face. It was undeniably Amelia, the way her hair fell, framing her delicate features, the subtle curve of her neck, the delicate line of her jaw, the haunting green of her eyes, dulled by a sorrow that seemed to echo through the ages, the single tear, a luminous drop of grief suspended on her pale skin. It was Amelia, undeniably, undeniably. A cold wave of fear washed over him, a primal terror that defied logic, that bypassed his rational mind and struck directly at the core of his being. This wasn't a coincidence. This was something far more profound, far more disturbing, something that threatened to unravel the very fabric of his reality. His mind reeled, sifting through memories of Amelia, of their life together. He remembered her vibrant energy, her boundless passion for adventure, her infectious laugh that could light up any room. He remembered the fierce love they shared, a bond forged in shared dreams and quiet understanding, the future they had meticulously planned for Lily, their hopes for her bright, unwritten path. And then he remembered the last time he saw her, waving from the deck of her sailboat, a radiant smile on her face, the wind catching in her dark hair before the storm. The police investigation had been thorough, conclusive, almost painfully so. Her boat had been found, shattered beyond recognition, presumed lost in the violent embrace of the sea. End of story. A tragic, final chapter. Or so he thought. But now, this painting, dated to a century before her birth, screamed a different narrative. a terrifying whisper from the past. It was impossible, illogical, yet the visual evidence was undeniable, irrefutable. His analytical mind, trained to identify complex patterns, to uncover hidden truths in intricate financial markets, was now grappling with something far beyond his comprehension, something that defied the very laws of time and existence. Was it a hoax? A cruel, elaborate trick designed to torment him? Or something far more sinister, a clue hidden in plain sight for decades, centuries even, patiently waiting to be discovered? He thought of Lily, her innocent, unwavering certainty, her small finger pointing with such conviction. Children, they say, see things adults cannot, their perception unclouded by cynicism or the rigid dictates of logic. Was it simply a child's overactive imagination, a desperate longing for her mother, or a primal, intuitive connection to something ancient, something he couldn't fathom? The thought sent a profound shiver down his spine, raising goosebumps on his arms. He had to know. He had to unravel this enigma, no matter how terrifying the truth might be, no matter what dark corners of the past he had to explore. His first step was to revisit the details of Amelia's disappearance, not as a bereaved husband seeking solace, but as a meticulous investigator. He pulled out old police reports, grainy news clippings, anything he could find, spreading them across the polished surface of his antique desk. The investigation had focused on the storm's severity, the wreckage of the boat, the painful lack of a body. There had been no foul play suspected, no indication of anything other than a tragic accident, a brutal act of nature. But now, he looked at every detail through a new, darker lens, searching for the anomaly, the overlooked detail, the thread that might unravel the entire facade. What if the storm was merely a convenient cover? What if the accident was meticulously planned, executed with chilling precision? He decided to approach it as a cold case, a puzzle with missing pieces he was determined to find. He reached out to his most trusted private investigator, a former police detective named Marcus Thorne, a man known for his relentless tenacity, his uncanny ability to unearth buried secrets, and his unwavering discretion. Thorne had a reputation for getting results, a quiet efficiency that Vincent desperately needed in this unprecedented situation. "Marcus," Vincent said, his voice clipped, unusually tense, when Thorne answered his call. The line hummed with an unspoken urgency. "I have a case for you, a very sensitive one. It involves my late wife, Amelia." He paused, taking a deep, fortifying breath, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "And a painting." Marcus, ever calm, his voice a low rumble, listened patiently as Vincent recounted the bewildering gallery visit, Lily's startling words, and the uncanny, horrifying resemblance of the griever. There was a long silence on the other end of the line after Vincent finished, broken only by the faint static of the connection. "Vincent," Marcus finally said, his voice grave, a subtle tremor of disbelief beneath his professional composure. "You know I handle strange cases, cases that defy easy explanation. But this, a 19th century painting? This sounds like a delusion, a profound hallucination fueled by overwhelming grief, my friend. Are you all right?" "I thought that too, Marcus," Vincent admitted, his gaze sweeping over the weeping face on the canvas, the silent accusation in its eyes. "Until I saw it. You have to see it for yourself. Come to the estate. Bring your sharpest mind. Your most cynical skepticism, Marcus, because if I'm wrong, then I truly am losing my mind. And if I'm right, someone has gotten away with murder for 6 long years, and I intend to make them pay." Marcus, intrigued despite his profound skepticism, agreed. He arrived at the estate the next morning, a tall, lean man with sharp, intelligent eyes, framed by a perpetually rumpled suit that seemed to be a permanent extension of his investigative persona. Vincent, his own nerves frayed, led him directly to the study, the room still dominated by the haunting presence of the griever. Marcus walked in, his experienced gaze immediately drawn to the painting, his usual detached demeanor slowly giving way to a look of profound shock, then a dawning comprehension. He stood before it for a long moment, completely silent, his eyes meticulously scanning every detail of the painted face. "My God, Vincent," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper, thick with uncharacteristic awe. That's truly uncanny. It's her. The likeness is simply too perfect to be coincidence, too detailed to be dismissed. Even the way her hair falls, the very tilt of her head, it's Amelia." His skepticism, Vincent noted with a grim satisfaction, had evaporated, replaced by the keen focus of a detective on the scent of a true mystery. Vincent explained his theory, the chilling, almost fantastical possibility of Amelia's disappearance being far more sinister than a mere accident. "I need you to dig into everything, Marcus. Not just Amelia's case. I want you to go back to the very beginning, to the initial investigation, and look for any overlooked discrepancies. But also, I need you to uncover everything you can about the artist, Thorne. Where did this painting come from? Who owned it before Finch acquired it? Who exactly is Thorne? Could there be a connection, however impossible it seems, between a 19th century artist and my wife's death in the 21st century?" Marcus nodded, his eyes now alight with the familiar spark of a detective on the trail of a genuine, unprecedented mystery. "This isn't a delusion, Vincent. This is a cold case, wrapped in enigma, with a distinct, unsettling dash of the supernatural thrown in for good measure. I'll start with the gallery, trace the painting's provenance, its journey through time and hands. Then I'll revisit Amelia's file with fresh eyes, looking for any inconsistencies, any loose threads. This is going to be profoundly interesting and potentially dangerous." Over the next few weeks, Marcus delved deep into the past, his methodical approach contrasting sharply with Vincent's agitated anticipation. His investigation began with the painting's provenance, meticulously tracing its ownership history. Alistair Finch, the gallery owner, provided the bill of sale, revealing he had acquired the griever from the estate of the late Eleanor Vance, a reclusive art collector who lived in an ancient, sprawling Gothic mansion nestled deep in the mist-shrouded countryside, a place known for its vast, eclectic collection and its fiercely private, almost hermetic owner. Eleanor Vance had died recently, her estate being slowly liquidated, her treasures dispersed to the market. Marcus traveled to the Vance estate, a dilapidated but still magnificent Gothic mansion shrouded in thick ivy and neglect, its imposing facade hinting at forgotten glories and hidden secrets. The estate manager, a stern, elderly woman named Mrs. Albright, with sharp, knowing eyes, confirmed the sale of the griever and spoke of Eleanor Vance as an eccentric, solitary woman who rarely received visitors, her life consumed by her art and her solitude. When Marcus inquired specifically about Thorne, the enigmatic artist, Mrs. Albright's demeanor became visibly uneasy, a subtle shift in her posture, a flicker of something guarded in her eyes. Miss Vance never spoke of the artist per se. The painting had been in the family for generations, a treasured, yet profoundly unsettling piece, she always said. It was always displayed in a secluded part of the house, almost hidden away in a dimly lit antechamber, as if it held a secret too painful to bear the full light of day. Marcus, sensing a deeper secret, a hidden narrative, pressed Mrs. Albright gently, his voice calm and reassuring. Did Miss Vance ever mention any specific connection between the painting and her family? Any stories, any lingering legends associated with the woman depicted? Mrs. Albright hesitated, her gaze flickering nervously to a dusty, framed photograph on a nearby mahogany table, then back to Marcus, as if weighing her words, deciding what could or could not be revealed. There were whispers, old family tales passed down through the generations. of a woman, long, long ago, who looked exactly like the one in the painting. A perfect, uncanny resemblance. A great-aunt, perhaps. The family believed the painting was a true portrait of her, painted by a secret admirer, or perhaps someone who loved her deeply, but forbidden. They called her, affectionately, the Weeping Willow, because she was always so melancholic, especially after a great heartbreak, a profound loss no one truly understood. "What was her name?" Marcus asked, his voice low, firm, sensing he was on the verge of uncovering something significant, something pivotal. Mrs. Albright wrung her hands, a nervous habit. I don't recall. Just an old story, you understand. A family legend, perhaps. They said she vanished one day, without a trace, never to be seen again. Some said she ran away, heartbroken, consumed by her sorrow, unable to face a life she didn't want. Others, that she simply faded, like a ghost, consumed by her own profound grief. It was all very tragic, very mysterious. This was far too coincidental. A missing woman, a striking resemblance to Amelia, a painting depicting profound sadness, and a vanishing artist. The echoes across time were deafening. Marcus left the Vance estate with a new, unsettling lead, a gnawing suspicion that the layers of the past were about to peel back in a truly unsettling, perhaps even dangerous way. The air around the Vance family, he realized, was thick with unspoken history, with shadows and secrets. He then shifted his focus back to Amelia's disappearance, reviewing the police reports with a fine-tooth comb, not just for facts, but for nuances, for things that felt off, for the subtle undertones of a carefully constructed narrative. He found nothing overtly suspicious in the initial findings. The storm's ferocity had been undeniable, the wreckage consistent with a violent impact. But now, he approached it with a different, far more sinister hypothesis. What if someone wanted Amelia to disappear? What if the storm was merely an opportune moment, a convenient curtain behind which a more nefarious act could be hidden? What if the accident was a meticulously planned assassination? He looked at the few remaining photographs of the wrecked sailboat. The damage was extensive, devastating, consistent with a severe storm, but could it have been tampered with beforehand? Could a pre-existing weakness have been engineered to ensure its demise in rough seas? Marcus's investigation widened, casting a wider net into Amelia's life. He began discreetly questioning Amelia's old acquaintances, her closest friends, even distant relatives who might have held a peripheral connection to her life, people Vincent hadn't thought to connect with the case, people who might hold a piece of the puzzle. He found nothing solid, no hidden enemies, no sudden financial disputes, no illicit affairs that would suggest a motive for murder. Amelia, by all accounts, had been a beloved, vibrant woman, seemingly without a single enemy in the world. Her life an open book of kindness and genuine affection. Then, he discovered a small, seemingly insignificant detail in one of Amelia's old journals, which Vincent had kept, tucked away in a box of her cherished possessions. A small leather-bound book filled with her elegant script. Amelia had written about a distant, estranged relative on her mother's side, a great-aunt she had never met, who lived in a secluded countryside estate. The journal entry spoke of Amelia's growing curiosity about this relative, a vague, wistful plan to visit her one day, to learn more about her mother's side of the family. History. A lineage Amelia had always felt disconnected from. The great-aunt's name? Eleanor Vance. The coincidence was too jarring to ignore. The pieces began to click into place, chillingly, forming a nascent, terrifying picture. Eleanor Vance, the reclusive art collector, the recent owner of the Griever, was indeed Amelia's great-aunt, and the painting, depicting a woman uncannily similar to Batchen, Amelia, had been in the Vance family for generations, a silent, painted testament to a forgotten sorrow. Was it simply a remarkable familial resemblance, a genetic echo across time, or something far more profound, a reincarnation, or something even more fantastical, a lineage cursed by a dark secret? His logical mind rebelled against such notions, but the undeniable visual evidence of the painting, coupled with these uncanny connections, made him question the very boundaries of reality. Marcus shared his startling findings with Vincent, his voice low and serious. "Vincent, I found her, the woman in the painting. Her name was Isabel Vance. She was Amelia's direct ancestor, a great-great-aunt, and the artist, A. Thorne, was Alaric Thorne, her secret lover. She vanished shortly after the painting was completed, supposedly eloping with him to escape an arranged marriage that her family vehemently opposed." Vincent felt a cold wave wash over him, a profound sense of foreboding. So, Amelia is a direct descendant, a genetic anomaly, a perfect resemblance across centuries. That explains Lily's reaction, her innate connection to the painting. But what about Amelia's disappearance? How does this connect to an ancestor who vanished over 100 years ago? It still feels like such a huge leap. That's where it gets complicated, and where the darkest possibilities emerge, Marcus continued, his voice grim. The Vance family was very traditional, very concerned with their social standing, their reputation. An elopement, particularly with an impoverished artist, would have been a scandal of epic proportions, a blight on their aristocratic name. There's a very strong possibility that Isabel didn't run away. What if she was prevented? Silenced? Vincent's mind leaped, connecting the unspoken dots with horrifying speed. Prevented? You mean murdered? To prevent a scandal that would ruin their name. And the painting was a desperate record of her profound sorrow, her last known image before she disappeared. A cry for help that no one heard until now? The thought was horrifying, monstrous even, but a chilling logic, an undeniable pattern of family ruthlessness, began to emerge. But how does that connect to Amelia, to her death in the 21st century? That's the part I can't quite reconcile without more information, Marcus admitted, running a hand through his perpetually rumpled hair. Unless there's something more to Amelia's family history, something beyond just a striking resemblance. The vanishing act, the name Vance, the connection to a hidden secret. Perhaps it's a pattern, a curse on those who uncover the truth within that family line. Vincent considered the horrifying implications. If the Vance family, generations ago, had been willing to silence Isabel to protect their name, to bury a scandal, what if that same ruthless instinct extended to Amelia? Could there be a hereditary secret, a chilling pattern of disappearances, a branch of the family willing to go to extreme, murderous lengths to protect their reputation and their carefully constructed legacy? It felt like something out of a Gothic novel, a dark family saga steeped in blood and lies, but the uncanny, irrefutable resemblance of Amelia to the griever made him believe anything was possible, no matter how fantastical. He needed to dig deeper, much deeper, into Amelia's maternal lineage, a side of her family she had always spoken of with a vague sense of detachment. Amelia's mother, he recalled, had been estranged from her family, rarely speaking of them, a silent rupture in the family tree. Amelia had grown up with a sense of disconnection from that side of her ancestry, which explained why the connection to Eleanor Vance, her great-aunt, had been so tenuous, almost forgotten. Vincent decided to visit Amelia's childhood home, a small, unassuming house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, now owned by a distant relative, an elderly cousin he barely knew. He hadn't been there since Amelia's mother passed away years ago, a place he associated with quiet memories, not chilling secrets. He hoped to find old family albums, dusty letters, anything that might shed light on this mysterious maternal lineage, a clue that had been hidden in plain sight for decades. The relative, a kindly old woman named Aunt Beatrice, with a gentle smile and a quiet demeanor, welcomed him warmly, remembering Amelia fondly as a bright, curious child. Amelia was such a vibrant child, Aunt Beatrice reminisced, her voice soft, her eyes distant as she looked at old, faded photographs laid out on a coffee table. So much like her mother, and her grandmother too. Strong women, but with a streak of melancholy, especially in their eyes, a certain sadness they couldn't quite shake, even in their happiest moments. Vincent flipped through a dusty photo album, its pages brittle with age, the images faded by time. He found faded sepia-toned photographs of Amelia's mother, then her grandmother, their features unmistakably similar to Amelia's. As he turned the page, his breath hitched, and he froze. A photograph, clearly from the late 19th century, depicted a young woman, her features almost identical to Amelia's, her eyes holding that same deep, melancholic gaze as the woman in the griever. It was Isabel Vance. The photograph was tucked away, almost hidden, between two more recent family snapshots, as if someone had deliberately tried to obscure its presence, to bury her from the family narrative. "Who is this?" Vincent asked, pointing to the photograph, his voice barely a whisper, thick with disbelief and dawning horror. Aunt Beatrice peered at it, a faraway look in her eyes, a nostalgic sadness touching her features. "Oh, that's great Tante Isabel. A bit of a family mystery, that one. Her name was rarely spoken in our branch of the family, almost like it was forbidden. They said she ran off with a penniless artist, brought shame to the family name. Her branch of the family was practically disowned, cut off from the main line, a deep and bitter schism. It's why Amelia's mother never really connected with the main Vance lineage, the wealthier, more traditional side." The pieces of the puzzle slammed together with a horrifying, sickening clarity. Isabel Vance was Amelia's direct ancestor, a genetic precursor, and the painting, The Griever, was indeed her authentic portrait, a silent witness to her tragedy. And the family, the powerful Vance lineage, had gone to great lengths to erase her from their meticulously curated history, to cover up the scandal of her disappearance. But what if elopement was a convenient, desperate lie, a carefully constructed narrative designed to protect their name? What if her family, the very same family known for their fiercely guarded reputation and their deep-seated pride, had prevented her from leaving, perhaps even murdered her, to avoid the public disgrace of her affair with a common, unaristocratic artist? And what if this dark secret, this chilling willingness to eliminate any threat to their family's social standing and financial legacy, had been passed down through generations, a poisoned inheritance? A chilling thought crept into Vincent's mind, cold and insidious. If the Vance family had been willing to silence Isabel a century ago to protect their name, what if Amelia, a direct descendant who bore such a startling, undeniable resemblance to the vanished ancestor and was now independently wealthy and successful, had somehow stumbled upon this ancient, brutal secret? Perhaps during her visit to Eleanor Vance, as a new connection to her estranged family, could her accident have been a deliberate act, a targeted assassination, orchestrated by a hidden branch of the Vance family, or even by a surviving guardian of their dark, bloody past, to ensure the secret remained buried forever? To ensure history didn't repeat itself in their very public, very vulnerable lives? The idea was monstrous, a truly gothic horror. But the uncanny, irrefutable connection to the griever and the deliberately erased family history painted a disturbing, undeniable picture. Vincent felt a cold, righteous fury simmering beneath his shock and grief. If someone had taken Amelia from him, if they had murdered her to bury a secret, a despicable lie spanning generations, he would find them. He would expose them to the light of day. And he would make them pay, not just with money, but with their reputation, their freedom, their very identity. He was a man of immense resources, driven by an unyielding love for his lost wife and a fierce primal protectiveness over his innocent daughter. Lily's words, "That's Mommy, but she's crying," now resonated with a heartbreaking, prophetic prescience. Amelia was crying, not just in the painting, but from beyond the grave, her silent tears now a desperate plea for justice, a haunting echo across time. He would be her voice. He returned to Marcus, laying out his theory, his voice devoid of emotion, yet radiating a chilling certainty. "Marcus, I believe Amelia stumbled onto a deep family secret, something about Isabel Vance's disappearance, perhaps even tangible proof that she was murdered by her own family, the main Vance line, to prevent a devastating scandal. And because Amelia discovered it, because she knew the truth, and perhaps because she bore such a banal, striking, undeniable resemblance to Isabel, she became a profound liability, a living ghost of their past transgression. Her accident wasn't an accident at all. It was a targeted assassination, meticulously orchestrated, by someone protecting the Vance legacy, someone willing to kill again to keep their dark history buried." Marcus listened, his face grim, his usually skeptical eyes now alight with a profound realization. "It's a bold theory, Vincent, a truly audacious one, but it fits the pieces, however improbable it sounds. The reclusive nature of the Vance family, their obsessive concern with reputation, the deliberate erasure of Isabel from their official history, the existence of a painting that so perfectly captured the face of the vanished ancestor, it all points to something profoundly sinister, something that stretches far beyond a simple accident. We need proof, Vincent, something tangible, irrefutable, that links Amelia's disappearance directly to the Vance family and to this alleged centuries-old cover-up, something that will stand up in court." End quote. Vincent nodded, his jaw clenched, his resolve hardening. "How do we get that proof, Marcus? The police closed Amelia's case years ago. They won't revisit it without undeniable, fresh evidence." "We go through the back channels, Vincent," Marcus said, a steely glint in his cowl eye. "We look for anything out of place in Amelia's final days that the original investigation might have missed, focusing on potential threats rather than just accidents. Any unusual contacts, any strange behavior, any hidden communications. And crucially, we revisit the scene of the accident with a completely new perspective, not just looking at storm damage, but for signs of premeditated sabotage. Was there anyone else out on the water that day? Any other boats, any witnesses, even distant ones, who might have seen something suspicious, something overlooked by the initial, superficial investigation? We widen our net, Vincent. We become relentless." Their investigation took a darker, more dangerous turn, now operating in the shadows of the law. Marcus began scrutinizing Amelia's financial records, her phone logs, her emails, searching for any unusual activity in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. He accessed encrypted communication data, cross-referenced travel logs, searched for any anomaly, any deviation from her typical routine. He found nothing overtly suspicious in her regular life. Amelia's life, on the surface, appeared entirely normal, happy, filled with the everyday joy of a loving family. But he knew, from years of experience, that the most insidious secrets were often hidden in plain sight, disguised as the mundane. Meanwhile, Vincent, haunted by the ever-present image of the griever, began researching the broader Vance family, their intricate crestee, their historical land holdings, their vast and often opaque business dealings. He discovered that the Vance family, though seemingly less prominent in mainstream society in modern times, had actually amassed an even vaster fortune through various discrete ventures, including shipping and specialized maritime interests, dating back centuries. This detail, maritime interests, resonated with a chilling implication. Given Amelia's boating accident, it was too specific, too perfectly aligned with the manner of her supposed death to be a mere coincidence. Marcus, meanwhile, personally visited the small, remote coastal town near Amelia's private island estate, a quaint place she frequently visited for supplies before embarking on her sailing trips. He spoke to local fishermen, weathered old men with eyes that had seen much, to shopkeepers, to any casual observer who might have seen something, however insignificant, on the day of the accident. Most remembered the devastating storm, the tragic loss of Mrs. Cole, the community's collective sorrow. But one old fisherman, a gruff man named Silas, his face etched with sun and salt, who had spent his entire life navigating the treacherous local waters, mentioned something peculiar, something that had always bothered him. "Aye, that storm was a nasty one for sure," Silas rasped, puffing thoughtfully on his pipe, his eyes narrowed as if looking back through the swirling mists of time. But before it truly hit, just as the sky was turning that ominous, bruised purple, I saw a sleek, dark-hulled yacht, not from round here, lingering near Mrs. Cole's island. Too close for comfort, if you ask me, almost like it was waiting for something. Then, just as the storm broke with full force, it sped off like a bat out of hell, disappearing into the squall, leaving a massive wake behind it. Never saw it before, never saw it since. Thought nothing of it at the time, just some rich city folks playing dangerous games with the weather. But it always stuck in my mind, that's all. Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. A sleek, dark-hulled yacht, before the storm, speeding away as the storm broke. This was it. This was the first tangible lead that pointed directly towards human intervention, towards a deliberate, premeditated act. He pressed Silas for more details, a description of the yacht, any distinguishing features, anything that could identify it. Silas, after much prodding and a generous payment, vaguely remembered a distinctive emblem on its stern, a stylized, intertwining V and C, subtly visible even from a distance. The V and C emblem, Vincent Cole. But Vincent's own yacht was a different model, and he had been nowhere near Amelia's island that day, serving as his airtight alibi. Could it be a hidden branch of the Vance family, using their ancestral initial, a subtle nod to their lineage? He quickly researched major shipping and maritime companies with historical connections to old money families, specifically looking for any entity associated with the Vance name. He hit a wall. The main Vance lineage seemed to have diversified into less visible investments over the past century. Their public profile meticulously managed to avoid scrutiny. He then contacted a renowned maritime forensic expert, Dr. Evelyn Reed, a woman known for her meticulous attention to detail and her ability to uncover subtle anomalies in boat wreckage, a specialist in analyzing marine accidents for signs of foul play. He provided her with high-resolution photographs of Amelia's recovered boat fragments, asking for a discreet, independent assessment, specifically looking for any anomalies inconsistent with pure storm damage, any signs of pre-existing compromise. Dr. Reed, a woman with a sharp, analytical mind and an insatiable curiosity for complex puzzles, agreed. Intrigued by the unusual request and the substantial fee. Days later, filled with agonizing, restless anticipation, Dr. Reed called with her preliminary findings. "Mr. Cole, I've meticulously analyzed the wreckage photos you provided. The damage is extensive, absolutely consistent with a severe impact from rough seas, as expected. However, there's a very subtle, yet discernible pattern here, specifically on the hull fragments near the keel. It suggests a pre-existing weakness, a structural compromise that would have been virtually undetectable without a detailed professional inspection prior to the vessel's departure. It appears to be a deliberate, highly sophisticated weakening, designed to fail catastrophically under extreme pressure, precisely like a violent storm. It wasn't a random flaw, Mr. Cole. It was engineered." Vincent's blood ran cold. a sickening chill spreading through his veins. Deliberate, professional weakening. This was irrefutable confirmation. Amelia's death was no accident. It was murder, carefully planned, expertly executed to appear as an act of God, a cruel twist of fate. The thought of someone so meticulously plotting his wife's demise, knowing that Lily would be left motherless, filled him with a cold, righteous rage that eclipsed all previous grief. "Doctor." "Reed," Vincent said, his voice taut, barely a whisper. "Who would know how to do something like that?" "And why?" "Someone with extensive, specialized knowledge of naval architecture and marine engineering, coupled with a complete and utter disregard for human life." Dr. Reed replied grimly, her voice sober. "As for why, that's beyond my expertise, Mr. Cole." But the structural compromise was highly sophisticated. It wouldn't have been obvious to the average sailor, or even to a casual inspector. It required precise calculations and deliberate, insidious placement. Vincent thanked her, his mind now spiraling with the horrific implications. The pieces were falling into place, forming a chilling mosaic of ancient secrets and modern murder, bound together by threads of vengeance and a desperate need for concealment. The connection to Isabel Vance, the erased family history, the willingness of the Vance family to protect their name at any cost, and now, the irrefutable forensic evidence of sabotage, the stylized V and C emblem on the mysterious yacht seen by Silas. It had to be a branch of the Vance family. Marcus then remembered an obscure, almost forgotten detail he had unearthed during his deep dive into the dusty Vance archives. A small, privately owned holding company, established generations ago by a lesser-known, more secretive branch of the Vance family, focused exclusively on specialized maritime ventures and security solutions for private estates and high-net-worth individuals. Its name? Vanguard Collective. Its emblem, a stylized, intertwining V and C, perfectly matching Silas's description. Vanguard Collective. The name sent a profound chill down Vincent's spine, a shiver of recognition and dread. A company dealing in security solutions and maritime ventures for the elite, with a historical, deeply secretive link to an old money family known for burying its past, a family whose ancestor was eerily similar to Amelia and whose disappearance was shrouded in Bea. Such profound mystery. This was no coincidence. This was the missing link, the undeniable proof of their insidious involvement. Marcus immediately began investigating Vanguard Collective, discreetly at first, peeling back the layers of its opaque operations. He discovered that while the main Vance family had diversified into mainstream finance, art, and philanthropy, this particular, more shadowy branch, headed by a formidable, reclusive man named Arthur Vance, had maintained a deliberately low profile for generations, operating entirely within niche, highly secretive industries, specializing in protection and, apparently, elimination. Arthur Vance, in his late 60s, was known in exclusive circles for his ruthless efficiency, his almost obsessive concern with family legacy, and his absolute, unwavering discretion. He was a distant cousin to Eleanor Vance, connected through the ancestral line that traced back to Isabel. Marcus managed to obtain a manifest of private yachts registered to Vanguard Collective, an incredibly difficult task given their extreme secrecy. One particular vessel, a sleek, dark-hulled yacht named the Sentinel, fit the fisherman Silas's description perfectly, from its sleek lines to its ominous, almost predatory appearance. Its last known location, according to official, publicly available logs, was hundreds of miles away on the day of Amelia's accident, ostensibly docked for maintenance. But Marcus, with his years of experience navigating the murky waters of subterfuge, knew that official logs could be falsified, especially by a company specializing in security solutions that operated far outside the usual regulations. They needed to prove the Sentinel was unequivocally at Amelia's island on that fateful day, despite the doctored records. It was the crucial piece of the puzzle that would tie Arthur Vance directly to Amelia's murder. Marcus utilized his deep network of contacts, reaching out to high-level satellite imaging specialists and independent maritime traffic analysts, looking for any unofficial data, any uncatalogued imagery, any discrepancies in recorded movements, anything, however minute, that could place the Sentinel near Amelia's island during the critical hours before the storm. It was a long shot, an incredibly expensive and time-consuming endeavor, but Vincent was beyond desperate. He was driven by a burning need for truth and retribution. Weeks passed, filled with agonizing suspense, each day dragging with the weight of unspoken dread. Then, a breakthrough, a beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness. A low-orbit satellite image, taken by an independent meteorological firm for storm tracking purposes, completely unrelated to maritime surveillance, had captured a fleeting glimpse of the Sentinel in the precise vicinity of Amelia's island just hours before the storm hit. Its position, captured by pure chance, was glaringly inconsistent with its officially logged location. The image was grainy, a mere pixelated blur, but undeniable to the trained eye. It was absolute, irrefutable proof. The Sentinel, owned by Vanguard Collective, the shadowy, secretive branch of the Vance family, was definitively there. The motive now became clear, chillingly, sickeningly so. Amelia, driven by her innate curiosity about her mother's estranged family, had likely made an unscheduled visit to Eleanor Vance at her secluded estate, perhaps even before Eleanor's death, seeking answers to long-held questions. During this visit, Amelia, with her uncanny, almost ghostly resemblance to Isabel, might have stumbled upon old family documents, forbidden letters, or even received deathbed confessions from Eleanor herself, revealing the horrific truth about Isabel Vance's fate. That she was not an eloper, but had been forcibly silenced, perhaps even brutally murdered, by her own family to prevent the devastating scandal of her love affair with Alaric Thorne. The family's pride, their name, their legacy, paramount above all else. This ancient secret, a bloody stain on the Vance family's pristine, carefully cultivated reputation, was precisely the kind of explosive truth that Arthur Vance and the Vanguard Collective, as its ruthless custodians, would go to extreme, murderous lengths to protect. Amelia, an innocent outsider privy to this dark truth, suddenly became a dangerous liability, a ticking time bomb threatening to expose centuries of family sin. Her death, meticulously staged as a tragic accident during a violent, unpredictable storm, would have been the perfect solution, ensuring the secret remained buried forever, swallowed by the unforgiving waves, just as Isabel had been swallowed by the earth. The Sentinel had been present to ensure the operation was carried out seamlessly, to monitor the sinking, and to collect any incriminating evidence that might float to the surface. The weeping woman in the painting wasn't just a likeness, it was a silent, desperate cry for justice across centuries, a ghostly plea, finally heard by her own child, resonating across the vast chasm of time. Vincent felt a cold, righteous anger ignite within him, a burning inferno that consumed his very being. For 6 long years, he had held on to the agonizing belief that Amelia's death was an act of God, a cruel twist of fate, a natural tragedy beyond human control. To now know, with absolute certainty, that she was brutally murdered, systematically eliminated by a ruthless man driven by ancestral pride and an obsession with a fabricated legacy, was a raw, agonizing wound that eclipsed all previous grief. His protective instincts, once focused solely on shielding Lily from sorrow, now encompassed a burning, unquenchable desire for retribution, for justice, for absolute vindication. He would make them pay for every tear, every moment of loss, every lie. he decided to confront Arthur Vance directly. This wasn't about involving the police just yet. Not before he had looked the monster in the eye. Not before he understood the full depth of their depravity. He wanted answers, unvarnished and direct. He wanted to make Arthur Vance understand the immense depth of his loss, the unimaginable pain he had inflicted, the irreparable damage to their lives. And he wanted to ensure that no one else would suffer for this ancient, despicable secret, that the bloody chain of the Vance family would finally be broken. Vincent arranged a meeting with Arthur Vance under the guise of exploring a potential investment opportunity with Vanguard Collective, a pretext meticulously crafted to ensure their encounter felt entirely legitimate, yet held the undercurrent of his true purpose. He chose a neutral location, a high-end, discreet private dining room, and a prestigious downtown club, a setting where privacy was assured but the atmosphere remained professional, avoiding any overt aggression that might tip his hand too early. Arthur Vance, a man in his late 60s with an austere demeanor and eyes that seemed to miss nothing, entered the room with a quiet confidence that bespoke years of wielding unseen power. He radiated an aura of quiet authority, a man accustomed to controlling every narrative, his presence both imposing and subtly unnerving. "Mr. Cole," Arthur Vance said, his voice smooth, devoid of warmth, yet impeccably polite as he extended a firm, cold hand. "It's an honor to meet such a distinguished investor. Vanguard Collective prides itself on forging strong, discreet partnerships. How can we be of service today?" Vincent, maintaining a calm exterior that belied the storm raging within him, began to lay out his fabricated proposal, a complex, high-value investment in advanced maritime security technology, emphasizing the need for absolute secrecy and highly specialized operations. He watched Arthur Vance closely, observing his reactions, his subtle tells, the almost imperceptible shifts in his composure. Arthur listened patiently, his face a perfectly maintained mask of expressionlessness, his eyes like chips of granite, betraying no emotion, no hint of recognition as Vincent alluded to the unique challenges of operating in sensitive marine environments. After Vincent finished his elaborate fictitious pitch, Arthur leaned back in his plush leather chair, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. "An interesting proposition, Mr. Cole. Vanguard Collective indeed prides itself on discretion and, shall we say, ensuring certain matters remain contained, particularly those that require a delicate hand and specialized expertise." His words, delivered with a detached precision, carried a chilling undertone that went far beyond mere business, resonating with a sinister double meaning that Vincent immediately recognized. Vincent seized the opening, his gaze unwavering, locking onto Arthur's. "Discretion is indeed paramount, Mr. Vance, especially when dealing with highly sensitive information, or perhaps extremely old family histories that one might prefer remain undisturbed." He paused, letting the carefully chosen words hang in the air, allowing their true weight to settle between them. Histories that might include a particular 19th century artist named Alaric Thorne, and a vanished ancestor named Isabel Vance, a woman who, remarkably, bore a striking resemblance to a modern-day individual named Amelia Ross. Arthur Vance's expression did not change, but a subtle, almost imperceptible tension entered his posture. His grip tightened, momentarily, on the stem of his water glass. A flicker, almost imperceptible, of something akin to alarm, or perhaps a predatory recognition, appeared in his eyes, before vanishing behind a wall of cold control. His gaze sharpened, fixed on Vincent, a silent warning, a predatory glint. "I'm not sure I follow, Mr. Cole." Family history is a labyrinth, often filled with forgotten tales, embellished rumors, and fanciful stories. My ancestors are a matter of public record, respectable citizens, I assure you. "Some tales, Mr. Vance, are not rumors," Vincent pressed on, his voice low, firm, edged with a dangerous resolve. Some are meticulously buried secrets, secrets worth killing for, secrets that defy the passage of centuries, secrets that Isabel Vance stumbled upon, or perhaps was herself a victim of. And, it seems, secrets that Amelia Ross, her direct descendant, also uncovered, leading to her very public, yet very convenient, demise. He watched for a reaction, any definitive sign of recognition, of guilt, of a break in Arthur's impenetrable facade. He knew he was walking a tightrope, but he was prepared to fall if it meant exposing the truth. Arthur Vance slowly rose from his chair, his movements deliberate, his presence radiating a palpable menace that filled the quiet room. His face, usually so controlled, began to contort into a mask of cold fury, a terrifying glimpse of the ruthlessness that lay beneath the polished surface. His eyes, now blazing with a dangerous, almost reptilian light, fixed on Vincent like a breed predator assessing its prey, weighing its options. "You presume much, Mr. Cole. You walk into my private office, making wild, unsubstantiated accusations based on children's tales and fantastical coincidences. This is nothing short of defamation, slander of the highest order. I assure you, my family name is beyond reproach." His voice was polite, yet laced with an undeniable chilling threat, a clear signal that Vincent had crossed a line. "It's not defamation, Mr. Vance," Vincent retorted, his own rage now fully unleashed, his voice rising, shedding its polite veneer and revealing the raw pain and anger beneath. "It's the unvarnished truth. Amelia Ross discovered that Isabel Vance, her own ancestor, was murdered by her own family, the Vance family, centuries ago, to prevent a devastating scandal. And because Amelia discovered that truth, because she knew the true bloody history, and perhaps because she carried the very likeness of that silenced ancestor, you, or someone under your direct supervision, killed her. You meticulously staged a boating accident to bury a secret that stretches back a century, a secret you were determined to keep hidden at any cost, a secret soaked in the blood of innocence." Arthur Vance stared at him, his face ashen, his jaw clenched, his composure finally shattering. His eyes darted nervously, assessing the exits, the potential threats. "You have no proof, Mr. Cole." "Just conjecture, and a vivid, grief-addled imagination. And you have significantly underestimated the lengths to which my family, and indeed, Vanguard Collective, will go to protect its name, its legacy, its very existence." He took a slow, deliberate step towards Vincent, his hand subtly moving towards his inner jacket pocket, a familiar gesture that spoke of concealed weaponry. "I have proof, Mr. Vance." Vincent countered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him, his hand already moving with practiced speed. He pulled out his phone, holding it up, revealing a pre-recorded message already set to transmit to Marcus Thorne and, crucially, to a secure, anonymized server linked directly to a major investigative journalism outlet, should he fail to check in within a predetermined time frame. A meticulously planned dead man's switch. Satellite imagery. Irrefutable eyewitness testimony of your yacht, the Sentinel, at the scene of Amelia's supposed accident. Forensic analysis of the wreckage, confirming deliberate sabotage. And a 5-year-old girl who pointed to a painting, The Griever, and said, "That's Mommy, but she's crying." Amelia's tears, Arthur Vance, are about to become your undoing, and the undoing of your family's dark, blood-soaked legacy. If I don't send a confirmation in the next 10 minutes, every single detail I've just told you, and all the overwhelming evidence Marcus has painstakingly gathered, goes straight to the authorities and simultaneously to Bell. The media. Your family's meticulously guarded secret will be exposed to the world, Arthur. Not as a rumor, not as a whisper, but as a chilling, well-documented tale of murder spanning generations, played out on every news channel, splashed across every front page. Arthur Vance stared at the phone, his eyes narrowing, his mind clearly racing. weighing his options, calculating the catastrophic fallout, the immediate public scandal, the ruin of his family's once impenetrable name, the devastating legal repercussions, the complete unraveling of his life's work. He was a man who valued control above all else, who had built his empire on discrete power, and Vincent had just stripped him of it, utterly and irrevocably. The silence in the office was thick with unspoken threats, a silent battle of wills, a test of raw courage. Finally, Arthur spoke, his voice low, guttural, dripping with cold, impotent fury, yet tinged with a reluctant, bitter resignation. "What do you want, Mr. Cole? What is your price for silence? Name your figure. Anything to preserve what little dignity remains." Vincent felt a bitter, hollow victory. This wasn't about money. This was about something far more profound, far more essential. It was about justice, about truth, about Amelia. It was about breaking a cycle of krika, violence, and deceit. "I want the truth, Arthur. Every single detail, unvarnished and complete. And I want an absolute, undeniable assurance that this dark legacy, this chilling willingness to murder to protect a name, ends with you. You will confess everything, not just to me, but to the authorities, and you will accept the full, devastating consequences of your actions and the actions of your ancestors. And you will ensure that the Vance family's hidden assets, the very fortune built upon these blood-soaked secrets, are used to establish a global foundation in Amelia's name, dedicated to supporting families who have lost loved ones to unexplained disappearances. A legacy of true compassion, not a legacy of death and secrecy. A legacy that actively works to prevent the very tragedies your family perpetrated." Arthur Vance stared at him, his face a mask of simmering rage, yet beneath it, a flicker of something akin to defeated resignation. He knew he was caught, irrevocably trapped. The meticulous planning, the years of careful cover-up, the illusion of an accident, all undone by a 5-year-old's innocent words and a husband's unrelenting grief, his unwavering dedication to truth. Confession that followed was chilling in its starkness, a methodical, detached recounting of a century of manipulation, violence, and systematic murder. Arthur Vance, his voice flat, devoid of remorse, admitted that Isabel Vance had indeed been murdered by her own family, specifically by a clandestine council of elders, to prevent the devastating scandal of her elopement with Alaric Thorne. Her body had been secretly buried on the Vance estate, her disappearance attributed to a heartbroken escape. A carefully constructed narrative for public consumption. The painting, The Griever, painted by Thorne in secret, was a desperate cry for her, a final testament to her profound sorrow, a hidden message of her fate. Concealed within the family's art collection for generations, known only to a select few in the family who understood its true, tragic, and incriminating meaning, Arthur confirmed that Eleanor Vance, in her final days, burdened by a lifetime of complicity and perhaps a dawning sense of mortality, had indeed been visited by Amelia. Eleanor, frail and weakened by age and illness, had confessed the horrific truth of Isabel's fate. Amelia, her distant relative who bore such an uncanny, haunting resemblance to the long-dead Isabel. Amelia, utterly horrified by the shocking revelation, had intended to expose the truth, to bring justice to her long-dead ancestor, and to break the insidious cycle of silence and violence that plagued her own lineage. Arthur Vance, as the current, ruthless custodian of the family's darkest secrets, had considered Amelia a direct, existential threat to the Vance name and their long-held, meticulously guarded reputation. He had mobilized Vanguard Collective, his specialized maritime security firm, to orchestrate Amelia's accident, employing their expertise in discreet sabotage and untraceable assassinations to ensure her boat would fail catastrophically during the impending storm. The Sentinel had indeed been present, not only to ensure the operation was carried out seamlessly, but also to collect any incriminating evidence or personal effects that might float to the surface, leaving no trace of their involvement. His confession was a stark, chilling testament to the horrifying lengths some families would go to protect their image, their legacy built on a foundation of lies and blood. The revelation was a final, devastating hammer blow to Vincent. For 6 long years he had clung to the belief that Amelia's death was an act of God, a cruel and random twist of fate that he simply had to endure. To now know, with absolute, irrefutable certainty, that she was brutally murdered, systematically eliminated by a ruthless man driven by ancestral pride and an obsession with a fabricated legacy, ignited a fresh, searing wave of grief and fury, more intense than anything he had felt before. But beneath the profound pain, there was also a profound sense of vindication, of justice finally being within reach, a clear path forward through the darkness. With Arthur Vance's full and detailed confession, Marcus Thorne immediately contacted the authorities. The evidence, painstakingly gathered over weeks and months, corroborated Arthur's statements with chilling precision. The investigation into Amelia's death, once closed and relegated to a dusty cold case file, was dramatically reopened, now a full-blown murder inquiry spanning generations, its scope unprecedented. The Vance family, once shrouded in impenetrable secrecy and revered for their ancient lineage, was abruptly thrust into the brutal, unforgiving glare of public scrutiny. The scandal was immense, shaking the very foundations of high society, reverberating through every corner of the financial and social elite. Arthur Vance was arrested, along with several key members of Vanguard Collective who were directly implicated in the sabotage and cover-up. The media frenzy was unprecedented, a feeding frenzy that consumed every news cycle. The sensational story of the griever, the haunting painting that had foretold a murder across centuries. The innocent child who possessed an uncanny, intuitive connection to the truth, and the millionaire husband who relentlessly unearthed a chilling, century-old conspiracy, captivated the entire world. It was a tale of betrayal, murder, and redemption that resonated deeply with the public. Vincent, with Marcus's tireless assistance, ensured that every detail of Arthur Vance's confession, particularly the horrific truth about Isabel Vance's murder and the Vance family's long, bloody history of covering it up, was made public. The media ran with it, digging deeper into the Vance family's past, unearthing more evidence of their ruthless pursuit of reputation at any cost, their willingness to sacrifice human lives for the sake of their name. The name Vance became synonymous with murder, cover-ups, and an insidious darkness, its once pristine, unblemished image utterly shattered and forever stained. The Vance estate, the sprawling Gothic mansion, the place where Isabel was last seen alive, became a site of intense forensic excavation. Days later, working off Arthur Vance's chillingly detailed confession, forensic teams unearthed human remains beneath an old, overgrown weeping willow tree on the property, a tree that seemed to perpetually mourn. DNA testing confirmed it. The remains belonged to Isabel Vance, her tragic story finally brought to light after more than a century of silence. Justice for Isabel, after more than a century of profound injustice, was finally, irrevocably served. Her weeping image in the griever could finally rest, her tears acknowledged and avenged. Vincent also ensured that, as per his unwavering terms, a significant portion of Arthur Vance's personal assets and the vast, hidden fortunes of Vanguard Collective were seized by the state and used to establish the Amelia Ross Foundation. Its noble mission, to provide extensive support and crucial resources for families whose loved ones had vanished under suspicious circumstances, offering independent investigations, comprehensive legal aid, and vital emotional counseling. Amelia's legacy, once marked by profound tragedy and silent suffering, would now be one of hope, truth, and tireless justice for countless others, a beacon of light in the darkness of unexplained disappearances. In the profound, often tumultuous aftermath of the revelations, life slowly began to piece itself back together for Vincent and Lily. The initial overwhelming media storm eventually subsided, leaving behind a profound sense of quiet peace, a stillness that had been absent for too long. Lily, though too young to fully grasp the intricate complexities of murder and ancient family secrets, understood only that Mommy isn't sad anymore, a simple, comforting truth that brought solace to her young heart. Vincent had explained to her, in simple, gentle terms, that the bad man who made Mommy cry was gone, that he could no longer hurt anyone, and that Mommy was now truly at peace, finally free. He kept the griever in his study, no longer a haunting mystery, but a poignant, powerful reminder of Amelia's vibrant strength, of Isabel's tragic beauty, and of the enduring, unbreakable power of truth. He often brought Lily into the study, and they would sit together before the painting, sometimes in silence, sometimes with Lily recounting her day. Lily would trace the outline of the woman's face, no longer perceiving tears of sorrow, but now seeing a symbol of resilience, of a love that endured. "Mommy's not crying anymore, Daddy," she would say, her small voice filled with a quiet certainty, a comforting balm to his soul. And Vincent, looking at the painted face of his beloved Amelia, no longer saw tears of profound sorrow, but a silent testament to a love that transcended time, a courage that defied death, and a justice finally, exquisitely delivered. Their life moved forward, forever marked by the indelible imprints of the past, yet unburdened by its crushing, deadly secrets. Vincent dedicated much of his time and his vast resources to the Amelia Ross Foundation, ensuring that no other family would suffer the silent agony of an unsolved disappearance, that every hidden truth would eventually come to light. He often thought of that pivotal moment Lily pointed to the painting, her innocent words shattering his carefully constructed reality, inadvertently leading him down a dark, terrifying path that ultimately brought closure, understanding, and a renewed, profound sense of purpose. His world had been turned upside down, irrevocably changed, but in the ensuing chaos, he had found closure, a deeper understanding of love and loss, and an unyielding commitment to justice. The love for Amelia, once a source of lingering pain and unbearable grief, had transformed into a powerful driving force, propelling him to honor her memory, to fight tirelessly for justice, and to ensure that his daughter Lily would always live in a world where truth, no matter how deeply buried, would always find its way to the light. The painting, The Griever, now appropriately renamed The Unveiling, hung as a silent sentinel, a beautiful, haunting reminder of a love that transcended time, a chilling secret that could not be buried forever, and the unwavering, unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter.